You want me with a hat on or without? Well, I'm sat in my house. It'll look a bit weird, won't it?
Yeah, it will.
Find something to prop it.
Must be your lucky charm. But yeah, thank
It's
you
all
for your...
you. It's all you, Roy. It's all you.
Hold on a second.
What a pain in the...
Hi guys, Rory here from Your Golf Travel. Basically, if you're into relatable golf stories, chatting about what's going on in the golfing world, golf courses that we can all play, you're in the right place. So each month I'm going to be joined by the golfing legend that is Lee Westwood for a quick chat about all the things that we just mentioned, as well as hopefully squeezing in some other guests as well. So in this week's episode, we're going to chat to Lee about his recent performance at the US Open, his thoughts on the golf course, Bryson, all that kind of stuff. But mainly we're going to focus on the Ryder Cup. As you guys will know, this weekend was supposed to be the 2020 Ryder Cup at Whistling Straits. For very obvious reasons, that's been pushed back to 2021. So we'll get Lee's thoughts on that, his upcoming schedule, and how he feels about having to wait another 12 months for Team Europe to bring home the bacon at Whistling Straits. So, hi Lee. Congratulations on another very decent showing at the US Open. Tied 13th, was it, in the end?
Yeah, bogeyed the last two holes. Else it'd have been tied 5th. So, yeah, it was a good week. I played well. Got off to a good start, obviously, with a 67 in the first round. Bad finish in the second round, finishing double bogey, bogey for a 6 over. It was a tough day. But played well at the weekend. A couple of 72s, which were pretty good. Finished bogey in the final round and started with a double in the third round. So the middle stuff each day was pretty good. Course was great, fantastic condition. Greens were very good. They're obviously very tricky complexes, and especially the first green. Rough was thick, as you'd expect at a US Open, and it's a pretty long golf course. So, played into the long hitters' hands. Which, I was hitting it a long way. So, I can still class myself as one of them. I'm not a bomber by any means, but I'm not short anymore. I haven't got short as the years have gone by. So I managed to drive it in enough fairways to be able to compete.
Yeah, so well done. I was going to ask you about the condition of the course and the setup in comparison with other US Opens. And obviously with what Bryson's been doing, there's been a lot of noise and people a little bit confused about how he's achieving things, and I think there was maybe some misconceptions that the course was set up drastically different to other US Opens. From what would you think about that? Yeah. I would say it's a fairly standard US Open setup from what I saw.
Yeah, just the way they normally do it, the width of the fairways, the length of the rough, the firmness of the greens. Listen, over the years, the longer players have always come to the top. Yeah. No matter what golf course it is. It was Jack back in his day, and Greg Norman was a long hitter when he was world number one for many years. Tiger was, DJ was, Rory was, if you're looking more recently. Jason Day when he got to world number one. I was, nobody's ever been at world number one and been at the top of the world rankings and played well in these big tournaments without being a long hitter. It's an advantage, which, you shouldn't be penalised for. It's not easy to hit it straight and a long way, and you should have an advantage from that. So it's lazy reporting in a way that people have
completely agree,
highlighted this and not looked into it in depth. I think they've just somebody's come out with something and everybody's just jumped on the bandwagon, and you can't knock Bryson for hitting it a long way. He's not done it so much with technology. His length's come from going in the gym and doing the hard work in the gym and building himself up. So if somebody wants to exploit a strength like that and develop a strength, then fair play to him. Yeah, anybody can do it.
I completely agree. I think it's very easy for certain golf media to run with quite a lazy narrative, and then obviously the general population of golfers who maybe don't know any better just run with that as well, and all of a sudden the internet becomes just a crazy place for a few weeks. Yeah. And I mean, what's he going to do at Augusta, for example, with what he's built his game into over the last few months since lockdown? It's refreshing to hear you say that, because Yeah, it's you see a lot of negativity surrounding it, and he's just put in a lot of very, very hard work. And as you say, anyone could do it. So,
Yeah.
So shifting from the US Open and that, we're going to go to the Ryder Cup. Obviously, this weekend was supposed to be Whistling Straits.
Yeah.
Or
not go to the Ryder Cup.
Yeah, exactly. Obviously, that's been shifted back to 2021. Firstly, was that the right decision in your mind to postpone it and move it back?
Yeah, I think so. I think, if there's any golf tournament that feeds off the atmosphere and, an enthusiastic crowd, and it's the Ryder Cup.
Yeah.
It's one of the few tournaments where people pick a side. Well, it is the only tournament really where people pick a side. And you're either an American fan or a European fan, and it just wouldn't have been the same without a crowd there. And the Americans would have been at a huge disadvantage because games away from home are always tough because you got a small percentage of the crowd there supporting you. So ironically, it's beautiful weather in Whistling Straits this week, so that would have been nice. But it'll be a great event when it comes around next year. It's not too much of a loss.
Yeah. So you mentioned the golf course. What are your thoughts? Obviously, you've probably played events there, PGA Championships and whatnot at Whistling Straits. What are your thoughts on the golf course as a whole, and also in relation to Paul McGinley's mentioned in the past that he actually thinks it's a golf course that might suit the Europeans more than the Americans, which is an interesting choice considering it's a home event for them. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I like the golf course. I think it's a good golf course. I can see what Paul means, and I'd agree with him. It can get cold up there, which it wouldn't have been this week, but it can get cold up there. It can get windy. One of the interesting things is when you're a home captain, you get to set the golf course up as you would like it and to suit your team. So we set it up in Paris last time, brought the fairways in, grew up a little bit of rough, played around a golf course that we'd all played a lot, Paris National. The time before, the Americans set it up, they had big hitters that maybe weren't the straightest, so they cut the rough down, put the flags in the middle of the greens, turned it into a bit of a putting tournament. Statistically, their team was a better team at putting than ours, so you would do that and suit your own team. Interestingly enough, you can't do a lot with Whistling Straits.
Yeah,
you're dictated to by the fairways are kind of there, and then it goes into mounding and stuff like that. So it is as the designer intended it. You can't tweak it or anything like that, and you wouldn't be able to get the greens silly quick because it can get windy up there, and all of a sudden the balls start blowing around. So, and the greens are quite undulating. So the golf course is pretty much however it's laid out. That's how everybody has to play it. So I can see what he means by it being a good venue for the Europeans. I'd agree.
Cool. So touching on the qualification process, obviously a bit of an unusual situation, a bit like 2001 when it got shifted to 2002. Slightly different as well, because if I'm right in saying that in 2001, obviously it was much closer to the event when that decision was made because of what happened in New York, I believe. So the teams got frozen, wasn't that right? So the team that had qualified then played a year later.
Yeah, the qualification was over and was done. So we knew who qualified, but
whereas
this time around.
So this year we were kind of halfway or 2/3 of the way through that process, weren't we? So it's been frozen until January, is that correct? And then points will start being accumulated again?
Yeah, I think we played for about 40% of the points, something like that. So, obviously you've got kind of a skeleton of a team, really. But all the major championships were missing off it.
Yeah.
Some World Golf Championships missing off it. So it made sense to do what we've done and freeze it and then start it back up again in January. You want your best players playing at the time of the Ryder Cup, ideally. So
yeah, I mean that was a kind of a bit of an issue back in 2002, wasn't it? There were some players, I won't name any names.
Yeah, I was one of them.
Who'd obviously played really well to get into the team, but then a year later might not have been playing as well as they were. So that was tough for them. So am I right in saying that you were a vice captain for this one? Or are you trying to play your way into the team as well? Because obviously you had a great start to the year in Abu Dhabi, for example.
Yeah, no, I'm in the team as it stands at the moment. So I'm trying to play my way into it, and hopefully, I'll be on the team and playing at Whistling Straits. So, if I qualify, I'll be delighted. Certainly playing well enough. If not, then hopefully Podrick will get me there as a vice captain, and I'll still be involved. So
yeah, cool. And that would be your 11th playing appearance, would it?
Yeah, 11. I played 10, so I played 10 and been vice captain at 1. So
excellent.
Yeah.
And so in general, obviously, there's not been a huge amount of golf played, but what's it been like playing? We've mentioned obviously the Ryder Cup being the fans being such an important part of that particular event, but what's it been like playing regular tour events and majors without fans?
In Europe, it's been a lot tougher than last week at the US Open. You know, there's a little bit more freedom in the States. You can do a little bit more. It's not so much of a bubble. You know, you can maybe go out for dinner if you want to, or you can go down the gym. You know, you can share with maybe another player, which we did last week. We shared with the Willets. So, but there is a little bit more freedom. The European Tour, you know, have made it a very closed bubble. So, like next week at the Scottish Open, I'm staying on the golf course there, so I'm not allowed outside the golf course. So once I get there Tuesday, I get tested, and then I'm there for the whole week. And you know, that can be quite tricky. You know, you feel a bit sort of locked down, really. But you know, and I hear a lot of people saying, you know, it's hard to get used to with no crowds there, and you know, the situation as it is. Well, that is the kind of the new norm for a while. So you've got to get used to it, else don't play. And you know, sometimes the intensity is not quite there, but you have to try and create the intensity.
Yeah, I think Rory said he's been struggling to kind of motivate himself and get up for it.
I mean, certain players handle it in different ways. Some people feed off the crowd. Other people are happy, you know, with them not being there. Interestingly, you know, we've had a lot of people playing well in Europe on the main tour that have come off the Challenge Tour, and I was talking to a couple of them. They were like, "Well, it's no different to us because you don't get any crowds on the Challenge Tour anyway." So we're used to not playing. We used to not playing in front of people, and so you know, it's no different to us. Whereas, you know, I'll turn up to a tournament and I might have 1,000 people walking around with me every time I play golf. So obviously, subconsciously, I feed off the crowd and the applause. Sometimes you find yourself waiting for applause and nothing comes. So
yeah, well, it must be strange for you. I guess you probably haven't played any like meaningful golf, for lack of a better word, for 25, 26 years without a huge number of people there. So it must be quite weird to adjust to.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so you just have to get your head around that and try and find a new approach. Easy for some and not easy for others. I mean, some have had a real advantage because some people don't like playing in front of people. Some professionals, they find it awkward. You see people play well at the weekend, then go away, play well in the week, then fall away at the weekend because they've, you know, suddenly got a crowd and having to play in front of people. Whereas it's not happening in these events, so they're not falling away quite as easily. You know, the pressure is not as intense at the weekend. So. Yeah. You know, some people are taking advantage of that.
Yeah, well, as you know, I struggle with just a camera and yourself to be playing in front of. So, so you've actually just answered.
I've seen you take a divot with a driver.
I hope that's still there. I hope they got it roped off and maybe a little plaque on that tee. But
we had to put some cones down it in case somebody fell down and broke their ankle.
So you've actually kind of answered my last question. I was going to ask you when your next tournament is, but you say you're playing next week in Scotland. Which course?
Yeah, I've got quite a nice run of tournaments coming. I've got the Scottish Open next week at Renaissance, and then the BMW PGA at Wentworth.
Excellent.
Then I'm playing in Scotland, and then Italian Open. Then hopefully a week off, and then I'm trying to get invites for Houston to play before the Masters, and then the RSM the week after the Masters. So hopefully I'll get invites for those two tournaments, and I'll have I'll be playing 7 out of 8 weeks, which will be a nice run tournament.
Yeah, it's great. And obviously you're back at Augusta for the first time since 2017, is it?
Yeah, that's correct, yeah.
And that's going to be, again, with the lack of patrons and it being a different time of year, that's going to be a bit of a weird one for you. What are you expecting from the Masters?
Well, the golf course will be as good as ever, I would imagine. Yeah. But obviously there'll be no crowds there. No par 3 tournament this year. It'll be a lot colder with it being in November as opposed to April. So just another new normal to get your head around, really. And but you still have to hit the fairway and then hit the green, then I'll try and hold the putt. So
same
Golf's
thing,
not changed that much.
Yeah. So I was going to say, obviously, it's again, people kind of get carried away a little bit on social media, and people have been talking a lot about what Bryson's going to do and whatever at Augusta, and he's experimented with the 48-inch driver, all that kind of stuff. It does strike me, though, as the kind of golf course that if he is playing well, or the really long hitters are playing well, especially with how far he's now hitting it, he could do some damage at Augusta.
It could, but it's not just a bomber's golf course. You need some finesse around the greens. You're not going to hit all the greens, and obviously you need a very, very good imagination on the greens as well. You get some interesting puts around there. So Augusta's great. It tests all your game. It's not just a case of hitting it as far as you can and doing it from there. Very much a second shot golf course, getting into the right areas.
So that will be, we'll go from Augusta, then the next major will be Augusta again, which will be a bit of an odd one. So I guess all I can say now is best of luck over the next few weeks. Hopefully, as you said, you'll play 7 out of 8 weeks, visiting some pretty awesome golf courses along the way. And for once, I won't be there in Augusta to pester you with a camera, shoving it in your face and every given opportunity.
I like it when you turn up. When you turn up and you poke a camera in my face, I generally win.
Yeah, so. Abu Dhabi was the last time we saw each other, so it must be your lucky charm. But yeah, thank you.
It's all you, Roy. It's all you.
Hold on a second. But yeah, like I said, best of luck over the next few weeks. Thank you for your time, and I guess we'll catch up again soon in about a month from now and see how you've done.
Great. Yeah, awesome. Looking forward to it.
Right, guys, there we have it. Interesting to hear from Lee about his thoughts on the golf course at the US Open, Bryson's performance, and how sometimes the narrative with the golf media can get a little bit carried away. Interesting to hear also his thoughts on the Ryder Cup, the qualification process, how that's going to affect 2021, and also his upcoming schedule. Obviously looking forward to playing at the Renaissance Club next week at the Scottish Open, and then looking further down the line towards the Masters in November. That one's going to be interesting. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this little bit of a casual chat with Lee about all things golf. Hopefully we'll see you guys next month.